हरि ओम। वक्रतुंड महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभा निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। गुरुब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुदेवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Namaste friends. Welcome to session 31 of the new series Gift for Inner Freedom and Transformation, a study of selected verses from Bhagavad Gita based on Shankara Bhashya. Today, we are going to complete the study of Dhyana Yoga, that is chapter 6, with the last set of 6 verses. In today's session, we are continuing with our study of 6 sector called Dhyana Yoga. We will take up the verses from 6.43 to 6.47. Srimati Mamata Shankar, Dr. Vikram K. Katpure, Dr. Rekha Kumar, Dr. Manjula Devi, and Dr. Bhaskar are going to help us in our efforts to understand these verses. Dr. Kiran sir will moderate the session and bring in the final points. Over to you, Dr. Kiran sir.
Thank you. Om Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Gurubhyo Namah. Human life is very precious. Swami Dayananda Saraswati says, just your born human being itself is a blessing. There's no need to complain at all, whether you're rich, whether you're poor, whether you're handicapped. Just because you're born as a human being itself is a blessing. In Viveka Chudamani, it says, Durlavam Traivatam Daivanugraha Etukam Manushyatvam Mumushuktam Mahapurusha Samshaya. There are 3 graces which are very hard to achieve, and it is only possible because of God's grace. One is human birth. If you look at the law of karma and calculate, all the permutation and combination, put some mathematical equation into it, it is said that it is, even if somebody takes 10,000, 20,000 births, it is difficult to do the karma which is needed to have a human birth. So there's no other way a person or anything can take a human birth other than grace of the Lord. And second is desire for mumukshutta or liberation. And third is Mahapurusha, that is Guru, Ashraya. If we find ourselves to be in the shelter of the great masters like, Dayananda, Chinmayananda Swamiji, or Paramarthananda, or Timapagde sir, it itself is a great grace and achievement, and it is very precious, and we should cherish it, and we should make good use of it. Why is human life so much regarded? If you see powerful animals, there are many: lion, tiger, and elephant is there. If you want to see somebody who can fly high, eagle is there. We possess none of the great qualities, but still, why our human life is regarded as one of the pinnacles? Because we have what is called as free will. Out of our own free will or voluntary, we are able to plan and intend to do some human goals. We can plan for tomorrow, day after tomorrow. We can think beyond what is called as basic needs, like food, shelter, and procreation, etc. This is why our human goals, human life is considered very precious, and this is because of the purushartha. The 4 purusharthas we know is, one is artha, that is the basic need we need. Second is kama, that is comforts. And third is dharma, that is we are able to perform some noble deeds. And also the above artha and kama, we are able to perform according to the rules. Just because we need artha and kama, that doesn't mean we commit crime. So dharma is not only leads us to a higher spiritual goal, it also ensures that the human being live in harmony. And but the ultimate pinnacle of these purusharthas is moksha or shreyas. What is that moksha? Simply put, as Swamiji says, it is discover, that is remove the cover which is covering our own, that is remove the ignorance and realize the true self we are. This is the moksha, this is the uh, enlightenment. But this is what are the three covers which happens. One is mala or impurity. That is, we always have some desire or something. This is removed by karma yoga. And second is our mind is always restless. As soon as we get up, we always desire to do many activities. This is quietened by upasana yoga. And ultimately, once these two are there to some extent, it is we realize that it is ignorance which is the basis of all these samsara or whatever suffering we are having. And how this is removed? This is removed by gnana yoga. Any ignorance is removed by knowledge. If I don't know physics, I have to learn physics. Similarly, if I am ignorant about something, myself, real self, what is the meaning of life, etc., we need to learn. And this is called as gnana yoga. For all these, two things are very essential according to Lord Krishna, and what we are learning in Gita now. One is Atma Krupa and second is Daiva Krupa. First 6 chapters, Krishna is dealing with Atma Krupa, that is self effort, our own effort. The second chapter is summary, but third chapter is Karma Yoga, and fourth it goes on like action in action, etc. Where and later on, fifth, sixth, we are coming, we are now into what is called as meditation. Once Karma Yoga is done, we are moving on to Upasana. For all this, human effort is needed. This is called as Atma Krupa. As we move to the next and perhaps 8th, 9th, it shifts to Daivi Krupa, that is grace of the Lord. Before we have learned, I told you, without Daiva Krupa, nothing is possible. But without Atma Krupa, this is not possible. Even Daiva Krupa will not be possible. Just like how you are seeing, we are looking at this man is looking at the Mount Everest. Oh, can I climb? Once his effort starts, then his friends may pull in, and Sherpas will help him, and ultimately it will help him. If with Daiva Krupam, he will reach it. But if he does not take the first step, nothing is going to happen. We are learning the first 6 chapters dealing with 5 main topics. First is for meditation, what is the general principles we need? That is throughout our life, what kind of lifestyle modification we need to do. We need to lessen our material obligation and then find time and effort to focus on the spiritual needs. Second is Vishesha sadhana, that is specific things we need for meditation, how to concentrate, how to sit, etc. And third is what exactly is dhyana swarupam, how exactly we should do, what is the difference between the meditation which is in yoga and other things, and what is the Vedic meditation and how it should be done, we have learned. Then what is the why we should do it, dhyana palam, the benefit which we require, which we will get from this meditation, also we have learned. Now we are coming into the last chapter, last part of it, that is dhyana pratibandha and its parihara. If what are the obstacles in it, how to remove it, these are what we have been learning. I told all these efforts to reach this human goal of moksha. It is said that this is like a walking on a razor's edge. Spirituality or Vedanta is not like any other subjects. This is like you should be ready to walk on a razor's edge without getting hurt. This is how difficult, klishtam, it is said that. And naturally, once we are embarking on such a journey, what happens if you fall from there? Such a person is called yoga brashta. We are doing something here also. Arjuna knows now behind his heart that Krishna wants him to fight. He is going to fight, and ultimately, many are going to be dead. After that, if he does not pursue further, what is going to happen for him? That is his, or in this he is going to do this dharma yuddha. If he dies, what is going to happen for all the things he has done? That is what he is thinking, and perhaps that is what all of us will think. We will sacrifice our own many of the material needs, material things, etc., and then embark upon this journey. And ultimately, if we realize that we can't move further, what happens? Such a person is called yoga brashta. And Arjuna has very nicely asked the question, what happens to it if person has a spiritual fall or stops in the way in between? And Krishna is answering, this and we will be studying further. This is not like a race. You fall down and then you have to go back and start overall again for the next race. It is not like that. Whatever, wherever by chance this is going to stop, it is like a pause button. Either in the journal, whenever we take again, this is going to come back and it's like starting again after the pause button. That is how it will be, and Lord Krishna is assuring us. So suppose we fall in our spiritual journey and die, or something happens and we are not going to proceed further, what happens? Then Krishna's answer is, never be pessimistic, enjoy the spiritual journey, because such a thing, whatever you happen, even in my own life or anybody's life, as you are seeing, whether we are in the ultimate moksha or not, this life itself, learning the spiritual knowledge itself, is making our own journey, our own life much better. So this is never going to be a loss, either in this janma or in this next janma. How it is, we are going to learn. So Apratishthita, last week we learned, that is the unsupported. What happens if we suppose we don't do it? Either we will be lying like a Trishanku? No. These are very famous verses of Buddha. Buddham Sharanam Gacchami. That is, first we should be always in a shelter of a Guru, Ashrayam. Then second is Dharmam Sharanam Gacchami. That is scriptures, teachings, Vedic scriptures, all these we should learn and follow it. And third, Sangam Sharanam Gacchami. That is Satsanga, what me, you are doing. When all these three things are there, we will never have a spiritual fall. Even if there is a pause, always it is like a momentum inertia. We are going to be rushed again towards this beautiful spiritual journey. To continue this, Srimati Mamta Shankar will tell the next verse. Mamta, please.
Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Chanting the verse 6.43. Tatra tam buddhi samyogam labate paurvadehikam yatate chatato bhuyaha samsiddhau kuru nandana. The literal meaning is, O Arjuna, there he attains association with that knowledge which belongs to the previous body and strives more for liberation. In the next slide, Lord Krishna's teaching in this chapter and in earlier few chapters of Gita has made it clear that mastery of one's own mind, which is achieved by practicing the sadhana chatushchaya sampatti, that is the 4 Ds: dispassion, discrimination, that is discernment of eternal versus non-eternal, intense desire for the highest spiritual goal, and the sixfold disciplines. Practicing this in turn gives a refined or pure mind, and it is a prerequisite for spiritual knowledge as well as the assimilation of the knowledge to attain the highest or the ultimate goal in life, which is liberation while living. Arjuna realizes that refined or purified mind is required for mastery of one's own mind and in turn attain the highest. However, Arjuna wanted to know from Lord Krishna what will be the fate of someone inclined to spirituality, practicing it, but could not attain the highest. A person who has practiced spirituality but could not attain the highest in one's lifetime, as just mentioned by Dr. Kiran sir also, for various reasons is also termed as Yoga Brashta. In the next slide, Lord Krishna responds to Arjuna's query in the verses 40 to 46 of this 6th chapter. In this verse 43, Lord Krishna emphasizes that there is no spiritual fall for any person in the spiritual journey. That is, the sadhanas performed in the spiritual path in the present life by the seeker does not go in vain. Shankaracharya in his commentary makes a very important statement, that is Adhyatma Samskarasya Nashaha Nasti. Once the spiritual teachings or thoughts are put in the mind, then they can never be destroyed. There can be a temporary stagnation, however, just like the glowing embers of the fire, which is temporarily covered by ashes. It looks as though there is no fire, but we do a little bit of fanning, the fire comes again. Similarly, the knowledge gained by spiritual seeker in the past lives will be resumed in the next janma, that is in the present life. In the next slide, Lord Krishna says Tatra in the shloka. That means such seekers in the present life will have an ideal environment. That is an environment which is conducive for scriptural study. Conducive family, social condition, competent guru, and shastras. Availability of all these make up an ideal environment, and the seeker shows inclination towards spiritual learning as well. That is, the yoga brashta of previous birth or past lives, or the seeker in the present life, will have both ideal environment and inclination to spirituality, and then the tam buddhi samyogam labhate, which means the seeker or the jiva associates with the knowledge and spiritual maturity of the past lives, Purvajanma, which they acquired in the previous body, that is Paurva Dehika. Because according to our Shastras, Swamiji says, between two Janmas, the physical body alone is different. The mind is not different. During the death of an individual, only the physical body is given up or dies. The subtle body or Sukshma Sharira, comprising of the mind also, does not die. It takes up another body in the next Janma or life. In the next slide, and it is that subtle body comprising of the mind also that is associated with the punyam, viveka, vairagyam. That is the good virtues, discriminative ability for choosing to aim at the highest goal and detachment, which belongs to the vasanas or one's own personality or habitual behavior or the tendencies, and they are the necessities for spiritual practice. In Tam Buddhi Samyogam, Buddhi means vasanas and Samyogam means vasanas inclined towards Adhyatma or spirituality. In the next slide, and for a yoga brashta who has done spiritual practice to some extent in past lives, the spiritually matured or evolved subtle body travels and takes up another body in the next janma or the next birth. And that person becomes spiritual in the early stages of their life itself, or the spiritual nature or inclination is manifested whenever the person can express themselves, or all that was obstructing the spiritual practice is overcome. Krishna says to Arjuna, Bhuyaha tataha yatate. The yoga brashta of past lives or the seeker in the present lifetime is determined to strive, yatate in the shloka, strive more. Swamiji says, however, the effort required will be lesser to attain the highest, and the seeker has to use their free will to promote, protect, and nourish spirituality to which they are already inclined to reach the ultimate goal in spiritual life, which is samsiddhi in the verse, that is liberation in the present life itself. Thank you, sir. Hari Om.
Thank you, Mamta. Perhaps this verse is taken from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Tam vidya karmani samanvara vidhe purva prajnacha. Here, prajna here is also means, it is not prajna of the Vedantic thing, it means the vasanas. Vasanas, as Mamta has told, is an imprint. That means the combination of all the characters we acquire here, that is the mind intellect complex, it is stored as a memory, it is transferred perhaps to even next life. Now, even scientifically also, the DNA imprint carries not only our physical traits, it is now carries our language, behavior, etc. Similarly, whatever good vasanas we acquire in this life or good characters, it will be in next life also. If we examine lives of Swami Chinmayananda or Arabindo or Ramana Maharshi or Buddha, we can come to know. Like for example, Chinmaya was never intended to become a sannyasi. He went to Shivananda's ashram thinking that these people are doing some fraud and I want to expose. But his vasanas or his yoga brashta caught up with him and he became disciple. Similarly, Buddha as a Siddhartha was a Kshatriya. Instead of hunting, he protects the swan. And we all know the life of Ramana Maharshi, how death changed his whole lifestyle. And Aurobindo, even though he was a freedom fighter, he came to Pondicherry to hide from the British. Ultimately, his previous vasanas caught up with him. And Swami Chinmayanandaji beautifully says spiritual maturity is not a revolution, it will happen like that, but it is an evolution which can take a long time, sometimes janmas. We will study further how a person, a yoga brashta, will be born in the next life and what all the things he acquires, how it is. For the next slide, the next verse, I request Dr. Vikram.
Hariyo, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Shri Krishna is addressing Arjuna's anxiety about a seeker who has progressed on a spiritual path but could not attain moksha in his lifetime. Arjuna believes that he is not qualified for moksha in this life and is worried that to attain moksha he would be required to start the spiritual journey once again and fail again. As we just heard in verses 41 to 43, Sri Krishna advises Arjuna that seeker should not worry, as there is no need to start all over again. Shankaracharya explains in Bhashyam, Vividisha sannyasi of previous birth who has progressed on spiritual path but could not get moksha is a yoga brashta. In next life, the seeker would get all the resources and an environment conducive to spiritual progress and spiritual journey, culminating into moksha. In verse 44, previous slide, please. In verse 44, Sri Krishna further clarifies the spiritual progress of Yoga Brashta. Now let's look at the verse 44. पूर्वाभ्यासेन तेनैव ह्रियते यवशोऽपि सः जिज्ञासुरपि योगस्य शब्दब्रह्माति वर्तते. The question addressed here is, how does the yoga brashta seeker gets initiated or remember his spiritual progress in this life? So Sri Krishna says, Purva Abhyasena, meaning as a result of earlier practice, that is the progress achieved in the previous Janma. Shankaracharya ji explains that Abhyas here means Shravanam. The seeker has already reached Jnana Yogyata in past life. He has already done Shravanam and Mananam, now has to progress further toward Moksha. Avashapi, without any knowledge or unknowingly, Riyate, there is a natural inclination towards spirituality. This spiritual prodigy also has material vasanas, but the spiritual vasanas are more powerful. Therefore, he is pulled towards spirituality. Whenever there is a choice between material indulgences or spiritual activity, there is a natural desire for spiritual activity, like an inner drive. Sri Krishna explains that this spiritual advantage is there for Yoga Brashta or the Vividisha sannyasi of previous life. For example, we know Swami Vivekananda was born as Narendranath Dutt, had opportunity to lead a very comfortable grihastha lifestyle, but was pulled towards spirituality from an early age. Next slide, please. But next question is, how is the inner urge triggered? Swamiji explained that for any learning to happen, a receptive intellect or buddhi is needed, which can be of three types: Karpura buddhi or camphor like, Angara buddhi or coal like, Kadali kanda or plantain like. When a camphor comes near a flame, it catches fire. Coal takes little bit more time to catch fire, whilst a stem of plantain will not catch a fire, rather would put the fire out. Person with Karpura Buddhi is highly receptive to learning. Next slide, please. So Sri Krishna says, Yogasya jignasu api. That is, just as it takes small fire to ignite camphor, for a yoga brashta, it takes a small trigger, like listening to somebody's talk or newspaper article or a small incident, for his hidden spiritual curiosity to explode and set on the spiritual progress. With moksha as the only goal, he becomes a Tivra Mumukshu. We know the story of Gautama Buddha. Seeing a day-to-day happening, such as a dead body, stimulated his spiritual progress. Shankaracharya ji in Bhashyam has A caution though, that spiritual prodigy also needs to be carefully exercise his free will and has to control his material vasana. However, if um, control his material vasana. Otherwise, he will lose the advantage and go away from the spiritual path. The control over the sense organ by free will is highlighted by Shankaracharya. Once the material vasanas are controlled, spiritual progress is like a boat which goes along the water stream. Next slide, please. So what happens then? Shabda Brahma Ati Vartate. Shabda Brahma here means the Karma Kanda portion of Veda. As we know, the Karma Kanda part is essential for achieving Jnana Yogyata. Yoga Brashta has already achieved the Jnana Yogyata in previous life. Therefore, once initiated, he quickly transcends the karma to karma yoga to upasana yoga to reach Jnana Yogyata path, and then under a guidance of competitive guru, he achieves Jnanam and Moksha in this life. For example, Ramana Maharshi embarked on spiritual path early in life. People wondered how he could accomplish this. This is what is explained in verse. Due to the preparation in the earlier life, he could progress quickly and become a Jivan Mukta. Therefore, to summarize, Sri Krishna is assuring Arjuna that the spiritual progress is never lost, even if the seeker fails to achieve mukti in this life. In subsequent birth, conditions will be enabled for rapid spiritual progress, achieve Gnanam, and attain Mukti. Hari Om.
Thank you, Dr. Vikram. Vikram has wonderfully explained what is the advantage that is a yoga brashta gets in his furthering the journey. Many of the malam or the impurity or the restless mind which we commonly experience are removed in these persons who are already yoga brashta. So their journey is like a floating in a boat, in a smooth without any waves like that. And they reach their destination very easily. Next, we have Dr. Rekha to explain further. Rekha, please.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Recapping once more, Arjuna had asked earlier in this chapter in Shloka 37, what will happen to one with incomplete Karma Yoga and incomplete Jnana Yoga? So, if a spiritual practitioner fails to attain moksha in this life, what will happen to him in the next birth? So, Lord Krishna had started answering this question in Shloka 40, and now he's come up to the verse 45. He says a person on this path need not worry about failure of any sort because a speaker's spiritual vasanas come back, picking up the thread in the next life with only a little fanning. So moksha is only delayed. Shankaracharya had said that once spiritual teaching is received, it cannot be destroyed like the glowing embers covered with ashes which come back to life. Spiritual life can be obtained in only two lokas, Manushya Loka and Brahma Loka. For continuation of spiritual study to occur, one needs two things. The first one is an environment for spiritual, the previous slide, please. So the first is an environment for scriptural study, and the second is a person should have an inclination in such a study. We have already heard about the yoga brashta from the previous speakers. So this person is an unsuccessful Vividisha sannyasi of the previous birth, who then becomes a seeker in the next birth, when he can be a spiritual prodigy. Next slide. So at death, we have already heard the jiva takes the purva vasanas with it to the next birth. So thus the spiritual inclination arrives early in a seeker who is a yoga brashta in the previous life. So it is not it is also important that that free will is used to promote spirituality or nourish the inclination into a raging fire to avoid falling into the trap of samsara. Spiritual fires or spiritual intellect is of three types. The Karpura Buddhi is camphor, which is lit immediately, it becomes a blazing fire with just a little bit of light attached to it. The second is coal, the glowing embers of coal, which need some fanning to get them to burn properly. And the banana trunk, it is made up only of water and pulp. It has no wood, so it doesn't burn at all. So Swami Paramarthananda says the Yoga Brashta is a camphor student. He immediately takes off from where he had stopped. Next slide, please. Coming to the verse proper, Prayatnadyatamanestu yogi samshuddha kilbishah aneka janma siddhasta tato yati param gatim. So this verse means striving diligently, that yogi who is refined through many births and who is free from impurities, consequently attains the supreme goal. In the next slide, we see the meaning of the individual words. Prayatnad yatamanastu. But he who strives with assiduity, puts in much effort. So both prayatnad and yatamanas mean effort. That yogi. So who is this yogi? The informed person or viveki, who knows the value of the Shreya Marga. One for whom all impurities like raga, dvesha, kama, krodha, papa, and their psychological outcomes like guilt, anger, etc. So all these have been removed by living a life of karma yoga. So such a person is free from samshuddha, all sins. So this is mala kilbishaha. And he, through many births, aneka janma samsiddhas, he eventually reaches the highest goal. Tato yati param gatim. Next slide, please. So Lord Krishna's answer to Arjuna's question is complete in this verse, and he says he gives the ultimate result of the pursuit of dhyana yoga in this verse. So as a spiritual genius, how does the yoga brashta feel the advantage of his vasanas in the present life where he is a seeker? Lord Krishna says he is free of impurities. He has a Shuddha Antakarana. He has mental purity. So what is this mental purity that is spoken about? This was discussed in the beginning of chapter 5. A person's natural inclination towards spirituality shows his or her mental purity. So one should understand that this is not because of the so-called partiality of God, but because the seeker has clarity about life's purpose due to the events of his past life. So rather than having materialistic goals, his goals are more spiritual. So being an evolved person, he requires very limited effort in the present life. His spiritual journey is enjoyable. He enjoys following Shruti Vidhi, and he can effortlessly reach the destination of moksha. Next slide, please. So we learn that even the desire for moksha is itself not an ordinary accomplishment. Just to get this desire, it has taken many births to come to this pursuit, aneka janma samsiddhaha. And in each janma, the seeker has gained yoga samskara or wealth, which is a qualification for knowledge. So I will say personally, the study of this verse has made me feel very blessed that we are on this path, on the spiritual path in this janma itself. Thank you, Hari Om.
Thank you, Rekha-ji. With this verse, Lord Krishna has completed the Yoga Brashta. With that, he has reassured Arjuna and all of us that if for some reason we are able to not pursue our this spiritual journey, it is not going to go waste. We are going to get at least heaven, and there is always a chance that in the rebirth we are going to start where we have stopped. This is a very, very reassuring. And he says, Samshuddha Kilbishaha, that is free of all impurities. Kilbisha here means impurities are malam. Aneka Janma Samsiddha. He has acquired not in this life, but many lives. We see many people who are cultured right from birth or, from children. Of course, most of us, this is not just happening because of the present life, it is because of the vasanas we have acquired before. And all these are never wasted. And he is again stressing the importance of our self effort in this spiritual journey, which is very important. The next two verses, the concluding verses, he is going to talk about the glorification of this dhyana yoga by glorifying the meditator and then meditation itself. Verse 46, Dr. Manjula, please.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari. Verse 646. Tapasvibhyo adhiko yogi jnanibhyopi matayodikaha karmibhyascha adhiko yogi tasmat yogi bhava arjuna. Yogi adhikaha, jnana yogi, is greater. Tapasvibhyaha, than the ascetics. Mataha adhikaha, he is considered greater. Api jnanibhyaha, than even the jnana yogis. Yogi adhikaha, jnana yogi is greater. Karmibhyaha, than a karma yogi also. Cha asmat, therefore, bhava yogi, become a dhyana yogi, O Arjuna. We've listened from the previous speakers that such a reassuring sentence is given by Krishna for us on the spiritual journey, that there's always an inclination to go higher up and never a downfall. And when everybody is looking at the higher inclination and a higher escalation on your spiritual journey in an easy way, in a faster way, and in an effortless way, one would wonder what happens to the papams that have happened. So the spiritual seekers are, it said that their previous Janma Papam is also put at bay in these spiritual speakers. It is said, we have this nice shloka in Nirvanashtakam, Sanchita, I mean, not sorry, in our Lingashtakam, Sanchita Papa Vinashana Lingam, Tat Pranamami Sada Shiva Lingam. So it's a nice feeling that all of us are taken care by Lord Krishna. In this shloka 46 and 47, Krishna is coming back to meditation again. He glorifies the Vedantic meditation because this whole chapter is about Dhyana Yoga and glorifying the Vedantic meditator. He talks about sadhaks and one has to go through until he becomes a Vedantic meditation. Next slide, sir. The threefold discipline which has to be compulsory followed by every seeker, which is also called as sadhana traya vichara, to attain spiritual freedom are karma yoga sadhana, where there's purification of mind, upasana yoga sadhana, where there's integration of mind, jnana yoga sadhana, that's for enlightenment or for removal of ignorance. So Krishna declares the yogi to be superior than the tapasvi or the jnani or the karmi. If you see in a tapasvi, he's the person who accepts voluntary mortification and lives an extremely austere lifestyle and is also a spiritual seeker and an aspirant. Whereas a jnani is a person of learning who actively engages in the cultivation of knowledge. If you look at the karmi, they are all committed to karma yoga. Next slide, sir. To achieve this kind of sadhana, three important factors are needed. That is also called as Ghataka Traya Vichara. So contribution of spiritual success is by prayatna, which is an individual effort, by prasada, that's the grace of Lord, and sadguna, to cultivate that healthy character by practicing healthy values and healthy attitudes. If you look into this 5 steps of ladder to spiritual progress, you see that the karma yogi is at the lowest, whereas the dhyana yogi is at the highest spiritual ladder. A karmi, that is a person who's doing an action, cannot practice meditation because whenever he sits for a meditation, he's all over wandering with thoughts. If you see a karma yogi, that is a difference between a karmi and a karma yogi. In karmi, he's doing an action, whereas karma yogi is doing a skillful action. So what is the skill? He's doing all of his action as Ishvara Arpana Bhava or Ishvara Prasada Bhava. So he's looking at the action and the results of an action in a very as kind of a Ishvara Arpana or a Ishvara Prasada Bhava. He enjoys a stress-free mind and avoids the violent reactions. He can forget incidences that disturb his mind and concentrate on the topic of meditation. So basically, Karma Yogi is being done for mental purity. And this is a must for Dhyana Yoga. That is when we acquire the Sadhana Chatushra Sampati that is so much described as the madam talked out. Next is the Tapasvi Yogi. Now, what does a Tapasvi Yogi do? He does a Saguna Ishvara Dhyanam and he acquires mental stability through Upasana. In Karma Yoga, it is Sharira Pradhana, contributing through Pancha Mahayagna. Whereas in Upasana, you learn to withdraw and focus Saguna Ishvara Dhyanam. This is done to acquire mental stability, therefore preparing the mind to Jnana Yogyata. What about Jnana Yogi? He does both Shravanam and Mananam. So self-knowledge takes place through Guru Upadesha and he prepares mind for the Vedantic Shravanam and Mananam. So So whatever he hears, he contemplates on it. Basically, he's trying to gain more and more of jnana. The next one is the nididhyasak or the dhyana yogi. He is a person who dwells on self-knowledge received during the shravanam for length of time. And so knowledge not only enters his mind, but is also assimilated. That is why it's called as jnana nishta. They're considered superior as they have absolute conviction in acquired knowledge and are fully saturated with what is called as Atma Tattva. If Upasana is preparatory meditation, that is Saguna Ishvara Dhyanam, Nididhyasaka is an assimilatory meditation, that is Nirguna Ishvara Dhyanam. Therefore, Nididhyasakas are who is practice Vedantic meditation and is in the highest form of step of the ladder of the spiritual progress. He is just very near to moksha. Next slide, sir. To conclude, it is Arjuna, Krishna tells Arjuna, do not stop with Shravana, practice Vedantic meditation, as only a Nididhyasak is in threshold of liberation. Do not stop with mere listening, recollect, revisit, and assimilate what you have heard. Let self-examination go on until the gap of what I know and actually what I am is completely reduced. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Manjula. She has very beautifully elaborated the glory of this meditation or dhyana yoga, and she has introduced many triumphs and terminologies and explained beautifully. I want to elaborate two concepts of hers. One is this, that is karmi. Karmi, who is it, is committed to karma yoga. That means he is doing is whatever action need to be done according to the rules, dharma, etc., purusharthas. But he doesn't know the higher or the fruits of it. The second is Gnani. Gnani is a person who is learning, actively engaged in cultivation of knowledge. It can be spiritual knowledge, it can be material knowledge, etc. Let us keep spiritual knowledge. But he is spiritually is cultivating knowledge as a theory based. Next, if you go to the higher level, it is a tapasvi or ascetic, one who is living a austere lifestyle. Gita, if we reverse it, as Sir says, it is Tyaga. So, Chinmayananda, in his opening sentence while starting Gita course, Yajna, he says, attachment is the root of all troubles. I would put it simply, attachment to the wrong things. That is, we get attached to ephemeral things or materialistic things instead of getting attached to the Lord and His teachings. This concept, that is why this ascetic or tapasvi is not austerity for the terms that he is going to punish his body or he is going to live a monastic life in a forest, etc. It is this vairagyam, that is detachment to the materialistic things and attachment to the jnana or the spiritual thing, and his mumukshutvam, that desire to move ahead, that is his will, he has shown by giving up the material things. That is why this tapasvi is glorified so much. This particular concept I will explain to it in the last, because further we need to understand. Now next slide, verse Dr. Bhaskar will be explained. Dr. Bhaskar, please.
Om Gurubhyo Namaha. So, in the previous verse, among all the yogis, Dhyana Yogi is the best, was concluded. So, in this verse, Krishna is trying to explain, even among the Dhyana Yogis, who is the best one. So, I'll try to have a small review of the previous topic. So, Vedanta is shifting the attention from changing thoughts to changeless witness. That's the first part of sadhana. So the body-mind complex is an incidental instrument used by me, but I am the conscious principle is the biggest shift and the most important shift in Vedanta. So meditation after scriptural study is for experiencing the Jnanapalam. And the benefit of Jnanapalam is Shanti, Tripti, and Abhaya. All these are not in the experience of Brahman. So we have to dwell upon this Jnana Palam Anubhava to become a Jnana Nishta. In Nididhyasana, bringing the same teaching in a silent mode, the teaching becomes more powerful and the Jnani becomes a Jnana Nishta. And this is strongly registered. As explained in the second, third, and 4th chapters of Bhagavad Gita regarding liberation, gaining freedom from raga, dvesha, kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya. What happens is, irrespective of the external situation, the mind is free from all the problems. This transformation is known as Jivan Mukti. So what happens during Shravanam, we are turning our mind from the grossest world to the subtle Atma. The permanent tie, what we have is we are fundamentally related to Paramatma. And in Shravanam, even though Guru is guiding in Shravanam, Atma Darshanam is not possible. It's only during Dharana, Dhyana, especially Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Even in Nirvikalpa experienced. So what happens is, the yoga palam of this reaching Nirvikalpa Samadhi is Satchit Ananda Swarupam Asmi. So you realize yourself and Atma Darshanam is there. And Tushyati, you feel the joy of Purnatvam. So most important shift here actually is a Jnana Nishta to Jivan Mukta. Atma is darshan. The Atma is at the individual level. If you take a ocean and wave example, is at the wave level. What is happening here in this verse? Krishna is asking Arjuna to see Atma in totality. That is, if you take ocean and wave example as ocean. So coming to the verse proper. Yogi nama pishena antaratmana same yuktatamo mataha. Even among all dhyana yogis, the faithful one who meditates upon me with the mind absorbed in me is considered by me as the best yogi. So, yaha madgatena antaratmana shraddhavan mam bhajate. So, the one who meditates on me as Krishna Paramatma with complete faith. So, if we go back to 6.25 verse also, Krishna says the same thing. Atma samstam manakritva na kinchitapi chintayet. Krishna says, one meditates Lord not as a person, but as Krishna Paramatma with Shraddha. So here basically the shift is individually, at the individual level, we are seeing Atma, whereas here at the end, Krishna is telling, among the Jnana Yogis, the one who sees me as Paramatma in totality, he is the greatest Jnani among all, among the Jnana Yogis. And this is my teaching. So what is happening is, Krishna is sowing a bhakti seed in this verse by asking to meditate him in totality as Paramatma. So he is glorifying the meditation by glorifying the meditator, because he is going to explain, next slide sir, he is going to explain Ishvara Swarupam, Ishvara Upasana and Ishvara Kripa in the Madhyama Shatkam in the next coming 6 chapters. That is to reach the Nirguna Bhakti, wherein eternally all-pervading, omnipresent divine consciousness is felt. So this ends the 6th chapter named Dhyana Yoga in Srimad Bhagavad Gita, which is the essence of Upanishads, which deals with Brahma knowledge as well as the preparatory disciplines, and which is in the form of dialogue between Lord Krishna and Arjuna. Om Tat Sat Iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Sri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Atma Samyama Yoga Nama Sastodhyaya. Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om.
Thank you, Dr. Bhaskar. He has explained the last concluding verses and put the whole concept of meditation, Nirvikalpa Samadhi, etc. in a perspective. Before concluding, let us, as I promised, let us study this particular concept which was explained by Dr. Manjula. Karma Yogi, it's a step ladder type. Karma Yogi, as I've explained, it is to do action accordingly. In every sphere of our life, whether we are in childhood, whether middle age, we are in old age, we always have an opportunity to do this karma yoga. Important thing we learned in third chapter karma yoga is pancha mahayagna, that is serving teacher, serving god, your other fellow human beings, animals, plants, and etc. This opportunity even in childhood we get to learn knowledge and to dissipate knowledge and to respect elders, etc. And even if we are in a say middle age 50, we get this opportunity. We will always have somebody elders to serve at this time. We can be not only ideal parent by showing our children how to take care of the our parents or elders, etc. We also have an opportunity to take care of our children or perhaps grandchildren. That's why this yoga or spiritual, that is the beauty of it. We always will get every step in our life or every ashrama, we get this opportunity to pursue this. The tapasvi, as we uh, studied, is the one who has given up or attachment to the wrong things. It doesn't mean that you give up all that you have. As a grihastha, we cannot do this. Then shravanam, it is a very, very important. Osho says just by listening alone, that is enough. If you know the story of Nisargadatta Maharaj, he was keeping a petty shop, and once he, along with his friend, he went to one of these classes, and somebody was telling you Tattvamasi, and he got it. It doesn't. That's how Shravanam has got that much power. But that doesn't mean that everybody will just get it and it is simple. In fact, Shvetaketu of Chandogya, Tattvamasi Shvetaketu, or Kathopanishad Nachiketas, they are all called Ekagrahis. That means you tell something, they have a capacity to grasp it and repeat it once, as soon as it is told, even once. Such a people or such a bright students themselves need to be told some 30 times, 13 times, etc. Repeated Tattvamasi Shvetaketu, Tattvamasi Shvetaketu, and even in Nishad, he says Etad Vaitad, like that, repeatedly he says. So this thing we should not, say that it is very easy and just by listening we get it. For that we need to have a prepared mind, and that concept by Karma Yoga and Upasana Yoga, we get this opportunity at every sphere in our life. And once we do it, any doubt we have to clarify. In this Shravanam and Mananam, Guru Krupa is very, very, very important. In the first, Atma Krupa is important. Here, Guru Krupa is very important. And once we pursue further, that is Dhyana Yoga, Nididhyasana, then it becomes more of our own effort, and then Daivi Krupa. Daivi Krupa becomes very important. And that doesn't mean that Lord shows some partiality. No. Just like how, air is there everywhere, Daivi Krupa is always there. We just have to sharpen our, antennas and receive it. That is all. And we will have this enlightenment, and I hope we'll have it right here, right now. Thank you very much. Om Tat Sat.
Thank you, Dr. Kiran, sir, and all speakers of the day for a wonderful session. Thank you, friends, for your active participation and invaluable feedback. We will continue with our study of Mandukya with Karikas 13 and 17 in our next session on Friday, 21st June 2024. Let's tune in for session 5 of the series at 6:45 p.m. on that day. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Thank you.